Okay, and here we go again. So I start out with a picture because I think it's nicer. Anyway, this one sort of surprised me because I have kind of a visceral reaction to lantana, which I think I mentioned in one of the plant family things. Yeah, I just think it stinks, and it's so planted everywhere, like sort of freeway landscaping plant and like gas station kind of plant, and that I have a bias. I admit, I have not given this plant its fair shake. And I just sort of assumed it was all the same kind of lantana, right? Like, it looks all the same to me. But this one is a trailing lantana, and I believe it's Montevideo. I have a friend who just recently moved to Montevideo in Uruguay. In fact, two friends, which is kind of a weird coincidence. Um, but so this one is, I think, oh no, whoever did that spelled it wrong. By the way, be careful with the things that you Google on, not Google, but search up on Creative Commons. There have been several where the ID is just totally wrong. So please be careful with your identifications, especially if you're looking under common names. That is a trap destined to make you give the wrong information out to the class. So, use Latin names when you're doing searching for images and information, and double check anything that seems odd. So, that being said, the variety that is mostly planted is Lantana, like Camara or whatever. It has a different species. It starts with a C. This is Montevidensis. Oh, I think that is spelled right then. Okay, yeah, sorry. Montevidensis from Montevideo, probably, Uruguay. And it's a trailing form. And as I was reading about lantana, I really did have like okay, it's not so bad, even if it stinks kind of moment. I mean, this is pretty looking, right? Also, I mean, so many of the pictures, although it looks like not any of the ones that I picked, because I wanted to show you leaves and flowers. It's kind of scrappy. Actually, there's a lot of stem that's showing. Leaves opposite. It's in the Verbenaceae. It's a lamiale. So if you recall, I think it was the Verbenaceae. I think somewhere I said scroff, which is wrong. That also has square stems, especially when the plants are young. So anyway, lantana looks like it has that too. That almost so many of the pictures, in fact, were covered in butterflies and bees, and I mean, this is a great plant for pollinators, and it's extremely drought tolerant, and it provides a show of color. Like I'm thinking of the one at my son's elementary school, where that place has not been watered in forever. It's littered with gopher holes everywhere, and then there's just a giant patch of lantana that's just blooming and full of butterflies. So I need to get off my issues with lantana and start to appreciate it more. I didn't include any pictures of the berries. They have these little dark colored berries that grow on here. And then some of the pictures, which I guess I didn't also include, like when you look up close at the buds, they're super geometric and really fascinating looking. So it's maybe not so bad, right? So lantana, Montevidensis in the Verbenaceae, the verbena family, which is in the Lamiales order. This one is the trailing lantana. Rosy lilac flowers, although there's alba, white lightning, lavender swirl, and obviously a yellow variety, right? So it comes in multiple different colors. Dark green, coarsely toothed leaves. Can we see that in here? A little bit. Just this sort of like serrations around the edges there. Sometimes tinged red, or that's great. I am so sorry for all these typos. I can only imagine what those soft chalks must look like, because I don't usually have time to go back and check them. Lilac flowers in 1 to 1.5 inch clusters. It grows all season long. I think like all the time, pretty much. So it grows here. In other places, only zone 8 and higher, is because it needs warmth. In other places, it's grown as an annual. It likes full sun, like crazy hot baking sun. Little to moderate water. Like I think it can tolerate no water, but probably would do better if it had more water. But I mean, seriously, the area by my kid's school, like there's nobody waters that, and it's growing. It's just amazing. 2 feet high to 3 to 6 feet wide with trailing branches. It's from tropical South America. Toxic, don't eat the fruits. Maybe not ideal for an elementary school, right outside the kindergarten play area, but there is a fence. with trailing branches and very attractive to birds and butterflies. Lantana montevidensis. Next up is the Corsican jewel mint or Corsican mint or jewel mint. It's common names, man. Mentha requenii in the Lamiaceae, which is not a surprise because it's the mint family. In the Lamiales order, the mint order. So this is a tiny little ground covering mint. Also that verbena, that lantana that we just talked about is in this section because these are the ground cover sections for the Plant California Alliance. So this is a tiny little ground cover mint. So creeping, it forms a mat. Like this is the kind of thing like in a somewhat shady area. I didn't put this on here. I so apologize. Heart shade. Regular water. In a somewhat shady area, this is going to be a beautiful thing, like if you have stepping stones or like rocks on a patio that doesn't get a lot of foot traffic. It's really pretty looking. And if it gets stepped on, it's very fragrant, but it can't handle a lot of stepping on. So not a place that gets a lot of traffic. It resembles moss, but it's very fragrant. It probably needs a lot less water than moss. Has tiny little flowers in the summer. So it likes warmth, but it can handle a little bit of cold, zone 5. Corsica, Sardinia, and mainland Italy, so it's from the Mediterranean. And then here's a picture of it. These are male Pseudotsuga menziesii cones, so you get a little bit of an idea if you know what it's a fir, right? Pseudotsuga, I think, is a fir tree. Cones look like. This gives you an idea of scale. It's small. Like I'm going to make a guess that this is like maybe the size of a quarter, that patch, a dime or a quarter. It's a tiny little thing. Really, really pretty though. So ideal in a situation like this on rocks, like a little rock garden or something. Anyway, it's hard to get a sense of scale, but it's got small leaves. It's a small, low-growing plant that forms a nice little mat. And next, okay, another plant I have a challenging relationship with. Actually, I have a challenging relationship with Liriope, which is the lily turf, because my evil landscaper neighbor planted it all over the yard before we moved in. Not right before we moved in, but the former owners had hired her, and I think she's awful. And she planted it everywhere, and it doesn't stay. It totally takes over. So if you had a garden somewhere that you were having to design in a place that you knew no one would ever garden, you could put a bunch of lily turf everywhere, and it would look like something, and that would be fine. But if anyone is ever going to try to grow anything else in that area, they'll be cursing you because it doesn't go away. It just is really tenacious. So this is related to that lily turf, but it's a different, they're both Ophiopogon, I think, but this is a different species. Actually, that's not true. The other one is Liriope, but they're more than cousins. They're like siblings, like twin siblings, sort of, fraternal twin siblings. Ophiopogon japonicus, so it's in the asparagus family, in the asparagales. So its leaves look like grass. In fact, let's just show it to you. It's also called mondo grass, and then there's black mondo grass. I had a picture. There it is, which is wild looking. Like, I think this is awesome. I would plant that around. And when I looked at it, this does not have the same invasive qualities as its fraternal twin, Liriope, otherwise known as lily turf. I need to change the size of those pictures so it scrolls a little better for you. Sorry about that. 6 to 8 inches high, spreads by underground runners. It's from Japan and Korea. It's especially good in areas where grass won't grow, I read. So like under trees, because it doesn't want full sun, and most grass needs a lot of sun. So it covers the area with something that looks like grass. And at certain times of the year, it makes those blue fruits, and it also has that really black mondo grass, which is probably wickedly expensive, I'm guessing, but kind of cool looking for just the right thing. Oops. It does say that it gets mauled by slugs and snails, but I mean, honestly, who cares? It's got so many leaves on it, it's not like you're going to notice that much. Unless it's new and starting out, in which case the slugs and snails can decimate things, especially if it's in kind of a shady area that gets regular water. So protect from slugs and snails. Use Sluggo or beard traps or whatever as it's growing, but once it gets growing, then it seems to be okay. It's easy to grow, it says. Also, as it grows, you can very easily increase your stock just by taking the plant out or breaking pieces off and planting them, and then they will spread. So let's see, we got that little guy, a patch right there, and some mulch. Doesn't it look kind of grassy? I mean, it's taller than grass, but it still has that same kind of aesthetic of grass. So those are the berries. And there it is. And I'm pretty sure that this is the flower of this plant. It looks different than the liriope, the lily turf, but it's similar enough. It's just that this is a little bit more spread out and the flowers are bigger, but the same looking flower. So I'm guessing that that's the flower of mondo grass, and then the black mondo grass right there. And that is all I have for you today.